The Five of Pentacles is a quiet, piercing image of human vulnerability, where two weary figures walk through a cold, unforgiving night, snow falling like indifferent time. Their bodies bent under invisible burdens, one limping, the other cloaked in exhaustion. And behind them glows a stained glass window, warm, golden, alive, suggesting shelter, faith, or help. Yet they pass it by as if blind to its presence. And this single detail becomes the soul of the card, because it tells us that suffering is not always the absence of support, but often the inability to perceive it. The imagery speaks of material hardship, illness, financial instability, or emotional abandonment. But deeper than that, it whispers of isolation created within the mind, where a person begins to believe they are alone even when they are not, where dignity feels wounded, and asking for help feels heavier than carrying pain itself. And in readings, this card often emerges during phases of loss of money, job, security, health, or even self-confidence, when life seems to strip away comforts and leave one exposed. Yet it is rarely permanent, more like a harsh winter that feels endless but eventually melts. And the positive aspect, though hidden like fire under ash, lies in its truthfulness. Because this card forces awareness, it removes illusion, it humbles the ego, and in doing so, it opens the possibility of real connection, compassion, and resilience. It teaches that even in the bleakest moment, there is still a window of light somewhere. Friends, family, inner strength, spiritual faith, or unexpected opportunities. And sometimes, all that is required is a shift in perception to notice it. It also deepens empathy, making a person more human, more understanding of others' pain, and more capable of genuine relationships. While its negative or shadow side is subtle and dangerous, because it can trap a person in victim mentality, self-pity, or scarcity thinking, where one begins to identify with lack so strongly that they unconsciously reject help, withdraw from others, or assume rejection before it happens, reinforcing the very loneliness they fear. It can indicate neglect in relationships, feeling unloved or unsupported, or actual situations of exclusion and hardship. And sometimes it points toward real external struggles, debts, illness, instability that require practical attention rather than denial. Yet even here, the card does not abandon hope. It simply demands realism and courage, because the deeper lesson is not just about surviving difficulty, but about recognizing that warmth often exists alongside cold, that help may be closer than pride allows us to admit, and that walking through hardship with awareness can transform suffering into strength. So, the Five of Pentacles ultimately becomes a paradox. It shows lack, yet hints at hidden abundance. It shows isolation, yet implies connection. It shows darkness, yet places light deliberately within the frame, quietly asking whether we are willing to see it or remain lost in the snow. Beyond everything already said, the Five of Pentacles also carries a very subtle but profound layer connected to belonging. It is not just about loss or hardship. It is about feeling like an outsider in the very world you exist in. There is a quiet exile in this card, as if the soul is standing outside a system, a relationship, a society, or even its own sense of identity. One may be physically present among people, yet internally feel displaced, like a guest in one's own life. This psychological exile is often more painful than material lack, because it questions one's place in existence itself. There is also an energetic contraction in this card. When life becomes difficult, the natural instinct is to shrink, to conserve, to withdraw, to protect. But the Five of Pentacles shows how this contraction can become a trap. Energy stops flowing. Opportunities feel distant, not because they are absent, but because the individual has unconsciously closed their own channels of receiving. It is like standing under a sky full of rain while holding a tightly shut vessel. Nothing enters, not because the sky is empty, but because the opening is denied. Another deeper layer lies in the distortion of value. This card questions what we consider wealth. When external resources diminish, the illusion that worth equals possession begins to crack. It exposes how much identity is tied to money, status, or physical security. In that sense, the Five of Pentacles can be brutally philosophical. It strips away external definitions and leaves a raw question. What remains when everything you relied upon is gone? The answer is rarely comfortable, but it is always real. There is also a karmic rhythm hidden here, not in a fatalistic sense, but in cycles of experience. Just as abundance comes and goes, so does lack. This card reminds that no state is permanent. Yet while inside hardship, the mind forgets this truth and time feels frozen.